Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Law of One Spiritual Advice Podcast. My name is Elle, and I am back again to read some Law of One material and share with you my opinion and interpretation on the matter. So, today I come to you to talk about a little bit of a more complicated one, but I don't want to alarm you too much. Just bear with me through it, and because what I want to talk about in this is very important, I feel. And it's just a little bit obscure because they talk about chakras and this and that, but I'll try to make sense of it by the time you're done listening to this. Even if you don't know the chakras, I will do my best to give you just a brief idea of what the heck is being talked about within this. So, just briefly, the idea here is that they're going to speak about how we are in a current time of transition. We're moving from the third density to the fourth density. And with that, there is the fourth density energies, which are incoming. You could consider that the environment has changed to a different vibration. And so now that we are in the new environment, that will encourage you to step forward into the fourth density of lessons of love and understanding and compassion and other selves. However, we are in our third density, in our third chakra, sort of, you might consider, in which case some people may retreat back into the second chakra of self, and sort of like a safety thing, or, well, we'll go into why you might want to, why people do that. So that's what this quote is going to be about, either stepping forward or retreating back. And this is from session 41.14. Okay, so this is from Raw, session 41.14. Before I begin, you can find all the links to this on my website, theoneinfinitecreator.com, and then there are links to the LL Research website, who gives this to us for free, and we really appreciate it. Okay, so session 41.14, Raw answers. The appropriate true color for third density, as you have ascertained, yellow. However, the influences of the true color green acting upon yellow ray entities have caused many entities to revert to the consideration of self rather than stepping forward into consideration of other self or green ray. This may not be seen to be of a negatively polarized nature, as the negatively polarized entity is working very intensively with the deepest manifestations of yellow ray group energies, especially the manipulation of other self for service to self. Those reverting to orange ray, and we may add that these are many upon your plane at this time, are those who feel the vibrations of true color green and therefore respond by rejecting governmental and societal activities as such and seek once more the self. However, not having developed the yellow ray properly so that it balances the personal vibratory rates of the entity then is faced with the task of further activation and balancing of the self in relation to the self, thus the orange ray manifestations at this space-time nexus. Thus, true color orange is that which it is, without difference. However, the manifestations of this or any ray may be seen to be most various depending upon the vibratory levels and balances of the mind-body-spirit or mind-body-spirit complexes which are expressing these energies. End of quote. Raw, the Law of One. All right, so as I said, right, it sounds a little complicated, and I remember the first time I read this, I was like, what the heck are they talking about? So I guess then why it's hard in my opinion is because they keep sort of switching back between colors and numbers, right? So we have the 7 bodies, 7 densities, you have 7 chakras. They're all semi-related to each other, and I guess it's hard if you don't know that, like, the yellow density is akin to your third chakra. All right, so if you want to make it easy, as I've stated before, the colors of the rainbow, like they taught you in primary school, Roy G. Biv, ROYGBIV, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. So you have your 7 colors, and then I am to understand that we have 7 densities. So I know some people kind of think of them as dimensions if you want to, but 7 densities of experience. We have first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh density. So right now we are in the third density, as some people like to refer to it as the third dimension, which would sort of have you naturally being semi-activated up to your first 3 chakras. So that would mean that your red, your orange, and your yellow chakra are generally in some sort of activation, meaning like you're using them and using them in your daily life to essentially live and perceive in that manner. So now what you're seeing here is that what they're trying to say here is that we're in a time of transition where we're moving from third density to fourth density. So you have these new incoming fourth density energies. And I don't like to call them energies and ascension waves and whatever the heck, all those people like to say. But let's just let's keep it real, right? The environment has changed. So now the environment has changed now to a fourth density environment, and think of vibration. It's just essentially like everything is vibration. So if you're vibrating at 3D and you're within an environment that's vibrating in a 4D way, you can think of that as a higher resonance. It's only going to naturally encourage you to resonate with the environment that you're within. Okay? So you being here in third density, having your first three chakras fairly activated to whatever degree, now you're going to be encouraged to step forward into the fourth chakra, which is the heart chakra, which is the green chakra. And you can consider that to make it easy here, they've kind of called it, stepping into other self. So let's go into chakras. I kind of think of them as filters of perceptions sometimes, okay? The first red may be akin to just your basic elements of everything. It's like the elements of creation which create the earth and all the elements of your body. Very, very basic. That's sort of your first density. And then, related to your first chakra, you can consider just your very base desires, survival, food, sex, things of this nature, okay? Now you step forward into the second chakra, which, let's talk about second density. Second density is kind of like the animal perspective. It's not necessarily self. It's sort of like group packs, right? It's like you are a body, right? You may have a third density body, but your body is actually a second density animal. So now there's sort of that idea that you are a seemingly separate entity within a creation. That I suppose this is sort of you in your orange ray, okay? And then, it's just like, hey, here I am. Who am I? I am I. That is me. Okay, so I have some sort of consciousness. But when you step into the third chakra, into the yellow one there, that is more communal, okay? So instead of just your individual self, you can think of your yellow chakra and the perception sort of associated with that as being community. It would be your larger family. It would be, an extension of self. So not necessarily stepping completely into other self yet. It's more like the way that you would see your family as part of yourself and your friends as part of yourself. It's sort of like the bigger you. It's the bigger community around you that's it includes you in your orange chakra, right? But you take yourself and your orange chakra and yourself into the community, and you express yourself in a communal manner. Okay, so these are very sort of basic explanations, but and of course, I'm going to be missing some things. I'm just trying to go quick for sake of time here. Okay, so you've got your communal sort of thing within the yellow chakra, okay? So now you're going to step into other self. So how do I step into other self? How do I step from community into even to other self? Are those kind of the same? And I mean, I would think they sort of are, because everything is a refinement of its previous chakra, if you will. Okay, so the way I see it, and the way I explain it to people, I suppose, is that in your yellow chakra, you're thinking, okay, everybody that I know, I love. This is how you unblock the yellow chakra, right? So if everybody that you know that is within your purview, you can love, no matter what whether they're good or bad or whatever, you can love those people. Well, you can then step into the next chakra, into the heart chakra of other self, where you then sort of have to love people that you have not even met, right? So then you'd have to consider every person on the planet Earth, just for sake of argument. There's all those personalities, infinite personalities, so many of them. So now can you go and accept and love those entities within yourself, no matter how distorted they are, no matter how out of whack they are? right? It's almost like unconditional love. Like you have to love them from the center of your being. And that is not easy, okay? It requires you to step out of victim mentality. And even though you may see negative entities hurting other people and possibly making victims of them, and to what degree that may be true, the bigger truth is that everything is within you. This is a holographic projection of the one. When you're dealing with the heart energies and the green ray, the fourth density, you are sort of accepting everything. You're accepting the shadow side of life as well. And that means that you need to, right, it's really easy to love all the things that are nice and happy and that you love, but can you love all of the things of the shadow that seem very terrible and awful and unacceptable? So maybe you can see what they're saying in this quote now. You're being encouraged to step into unconditional love of other selves. Does that not sound like a lot of work on your mind in a way? Is it not a lot to accept everything as is, as perfection, as love, as unconditional love? So maybe you can see why it's scary to some people to do that, and they instead retreat back into themselves, into the orange ray, into the orange chakra. It's like, and I'll explain this too. I'm going to reread you part of the quote here because this brought this up in my head when I read this part. So this part right here where they say, well, I'll just sort of reread part of it. So, however, the influences of true color green acting upon yellow ray entities have caused many entities to revert to the consideration of self rather than stepping forward into consideration of other self or green ray. This may not be seen to be a negatively polarized nature, as the negatively polarized entity is working very intensively with deepest manifestations of yellow ray group energies, especially the manipulation of other self for service to self. So, there's a lot to go into there. We can also talk about how the negative entity approaches this versus the positive entity, but I'm assuming that you're trying to go down the positive path here, and that you're the type of people I want to help. So I don't want to go into too much of the negativity, but basically what they're saying with negativity is that, the negative entity can definitely be using orange, yellow ray energies because that's exactly what they're doing. They always skip the heart chakra. They use the bottom three chakras maximally efficiently to control others, to then springboard themselves into intelligent infinity, into the indigo chakra, where they are able to sort of be sort of in union with the creator and create what they will. But the positive entity has all that possibility without the neglect of the heart chakra. So instead of going down the path of that is not, we're going down the path that is. Okay? Sorry, little sidetrack here. All right, so this may not be seen to be a negatively polarized nature, as the negatively polarized entity is working very intensely with the deepest manifestations of yellow ray group energies, especially manipulation of other self for service to self. This is the part that I wanted to highlight right here. Those reverting to orange ray, and we may add, there are many upon your plane at this time, are those who feel the vibrations of true color green and therefore respond by rejecting governmental and societal activities as such and seek once more the self. So I really resonate with that sentence. And why? Because I have done that myself. To what degree, I probably still am doing that to a certain degree. So I want you to know, I'm not perfect here, and you may not be listening to the most perfect example of this, but I would just share with you my perceptions of what this means. So it's really easy when you are trying to step into other self, loving everything. You are in this third density, which has a lot of negative entities about it, trying to control people. So it's okay, right? That's what they do. The negative entities offer a choice. They say, hey, you want to voluntarily enslave yourself? Listen to me. Would you like to step into love and unity and compassion and service to others for all? Well, maybe this isn't where you should be looking, right? But anyway, so the society about us is very much a control structure. And that doesn't mean, though, that everything in the community is a control structure of negativity. That is a sort of, I like basically, you look at government structures, right? There's just, what is it? It's problem, reaction, solution. It's just it doesn't really matter. You can go in government, and I have this sort of nihilistic view that, whether you vote left or you vote right. It's sort of like the control structure just keeps on pushing. So I get the hopelessness of the situation. I get the wanting to reject those structures because they're hypocritical. They are hijacking people's compassion and making them feel that what they're doing is right and in a compassionate stance, but really what they're doing is sort of being controlled and having their compassion used against them by people who wish to infringe upon our free will in a number of ways, and we basically just fall for it by keep listening to their advice. Okay, so I myself, like I said, rejected those structures, and I still do to a certain degree. But then that is bad for me, right? Like I'm not wanting to be just hanging out in my bottom two chakras. I'm looking to do what I'm here to do, which I'm sure is to be the best that I can be, which means to, activate myself and step forward into the new environment that I'm being encouraged to step into. So how did I do that? Well, here's my examples right here. I started this Law of One Instagram page. I tried to consider like going to my work as being part of this third ray chakra, this communal thing. I tried to not see things as so negative. I'm trying to step into communicating with other people and just basically being part of community. Like another thing that comes to mind is when you watch the news, you look at the state of the world and you thinking, man, this place is going to hell. But if you look at your community, right, on a communal level, your neighbors and things like this, like there is service, there is love. It's not as hopeless as it seems. And so I think that was sort of my awakening moment, or a moment of change within my awakening, was when I realized that, look, it's not about rejecting community because everything is just trying to enslave you. That is true, but we still have to push forward into the positive path of unity, which, is somewhat similar because it's like when we come together in the green ray, in the fourth density, we are creating like a social memory complex. We're creating a unified earth consciousness. But we do that either voluntarily in unity and in respect of free will of others, which I would suggest is the positive path, or we do it through a control structure that demands everyone's compliance for the greater good, right? There's a fine line between those two. So my thing is that I'm trying my best to step into the positive way of doing this, even though that I might be negating some of the other communal things that I could be taking part in, like, maybe work things and sport things with friends and maybe like being part of starting like a media channel, something like that. I could do all those things, but I find it, my own expression is just, it's easier for me to just find ways that I feel comfortable doing that, which is, I have my podcasts, I have the online Instagram thing. I tried to do some sort of like charities, I try to go out and serve others from time to time, just like hand out, like little like homeless gift packs to people. But let's go into some more specifics of this as well. Now, they talk about if you're retreating back into the self, well, you don't have the mirror of the other selves to, what did they say here, to balance the personal vibratory rates of the entity. So another quote in the material here states that, the biggest catalyst towards your growth is other selves. You can spend as much time with yourself as you want in meditation. You very much will still progress. There are infinite paths. All paths lead to the one. But there may be some paths that may be more efficient or, I would say more efficient than others. And running into other selves who are going to challenge your perception, challenge your ideas of what you know to be true, constantly refining, what you think is reality, and them challenging that, just sharing with you their perception of the way they see things, their free will, the way they have determined things. This is a huge catalyst towards our experience and our awakening. It's that the more we interact with people, the more that we get feedback about ourselves, we get feedback about other selves. We're able to integrate that within ourselves, and not necessarily just learning the lessons that you need to learn. You can learn lessons based upon other people's lessons and that they're sharing with you. That's how you're balancing your personal vibratory rates. And I think what they're trying to say is you're sort of balancing your orange personal vibratory rates by interacting with other selves in the green ray. And even furthermore in the yellow ray, and then even furthermore in the green ray. It's just like I say, it's not one or the other. It's chakras are refining the preceding thing. So of course there are going to be similarities between the two, but there's going to be those subtleties about stepping forward from orange to yellow, from yellow to green, which will be refinements of the previous sort of lessons. Okay, so I think that is mostly what I wanted to cover. Oh, but before I leave you, this sort of third paragraph here, which they state that, however, not having developed the yellow ray properly so that it balances the personal vibratory rates of the entity then is faced with the task of further activation and balancing of the self in relation to the self, thus the orange ray manifestations at this space-time. So what's an orange ray manifestation? They're personal eccentricities, like where people, they've said that before in the book, personal eccentricities. It's where the self acts out in a unique way that seems somewhat distorted, like with there's a little bit of judgment there. Yes, it's loving judgment, but it's still, distortion is distortion. I can see it. It can be, orange ray manifestations can be anxiety, fear, uncertainty about self, low self-esteem, just unsurety. There's just that cloud of darkness, it feels like, that's just around you. Like you don't know what's happening. It's just you feel alone, right? You've disconnected from other people when you've sort of disconnected from the yellow ray and you're retreating back into the orange ray. I'm just sort of sharing with you my perceptions. I've definitely done all of this, and I do it from time to time, even nowadays as well, which I will mention here, which is really important, actually. So let's just keep in mind that it's okay to revert to your orange ray sometimes. It is very much a survival mechanism, which is okay. Like, it's all right. Standing in the green ray of other selves in the full glory of the unity of unconditional love, of accepting love and your shadow, it is overwhelming, and it's a lot of work on your psyche and just yourself. It can be very much draining. So I just want to mention to you that, like, if you feel that you are retreated back into one of those zones, that's okay, right? Maybe even you consider, like, these are sort of like the dark night of the soul times where you just don't know, you got to regroup, right? Retreat into the self. That's okay. You can retreat back, figure out what's good, what you feel is important to you, and then you can try again to step forward into the larger community and into, larger love for everything. I think that that is important, because if you're in the orange ray, you're already going to be self-conscious. You're already going to be anxious. You're already going to be just overthinking things. I know a lot of you. I talk to you people sometimes. I am one of them too. So, just be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Okay? You can only be as kind to you can only be as kind to others as you are capable of being kind to yourself. You may or may not agree with that, but I still feel that that's true. Even if you're pretending to be kind to somebody, I would say that you're sort of BSing yourself if you can't be that kind to yourself, right? As you love yourself, honestly, truthfully, be, a good inner voice to yourself. encourage yourself to do well, hug yourself when you need it, right? You're going to be able to authentically give that to other people when they're going through the same thing as well, instead of sort of being like, oh, well, why don't you just suck it up, right? Like, I can do this, can't you do it, right? That's not necessarily the wise way to view things. It's better to come at things from a compassionate stance, and you need to have compassion both for yourself and for others, because they are the same thing, as we are told here. So okay, guys, well, I think that is enough for now. I know it was a little complicated. Thank you for bearing with me. I'm sure that maybe I missed some things, or we could have gone into a lot more detail, or maybe even less detail. But it's a complicated subject, and I kind of don't want to overwhelm any more than I maybe have with all this talk of chakras and densities and retreat and moving forward, etc., etc. So, yeah, if you guys appreciated this podcast, I appreciate you listening. No pressure, but you can always join my Patreon. I appreciate it. I like to freely give this service, and if you would like to freely reciprocate, I appreciate that. And, if not, no big deal. You can simply like, share, comment this video. Always helps with the algorithm and just getting this material out to more people and having it seen. And I also appreciate any comments that you leave me. I saw a few comments about some deeper questions in some of the previous podcasts, and don't worry, I did not see those. I see them, and I just sort of have them written down, and I'm going to think of ways to work them into later podcasts. So yeah, I appreciate your guys' engagement. I appreciate your support, and it's tough out there right now, so just remember that even though you may be temporarily hanging out in your orange chakra, try your best, step forward, try to love each other, love yourself, be kind to others. There's a lot of opinions out there right now, and they're harsh, but I think they're worthy of sharing. And you just don't need to be so overwhelmed that you retreat into the self. It's okay, hang out there temporarily, and then step forward again when you're ready. And the creation will have your back. You are in now these fourth density energies, so when you resonate with those energies, you will naturally see that things might just seem to work a little easier than maybe they did when you're working against the vibratory environment. So okay, thanks everybody, take care. We'll talk again later this week.